Gareth, we are increasingly living in a virtual world. Now, since the beginning of the pandemic, more and more people are spending more and more time in front of their laptops, running their meetings, whether it be with customers, stakeholders, or other people, by looking down the lens. Now, one of the things I talked about very early on was that one of the big mistakes that people make is that virtual meetings are not simply physical meetings done virtually. Now, we're going to spend some time talking about this over a series of videos. What I'd love to focus on, first of all, though, Gareth, is what is actually the same about virtual meetings?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Alex. And yeah, there's positives and negatives around virtual versus face-to-face. But one thing's for sure is, whilst face-to-face is back, virtual's here for a significant degree. It's always worth remembering that, for a virtual meeting, clearly there are differences which we'll touch on, in later videos. But there are a lot that is very, very similar. So if you think about the key fundamentals of any meeting, particularly, for example, from a customer's perspective, a meeting with a customer, the core things like, great preparation. And what I mean by that, thinking about what you want to get from the meeting, doing your research, thinking about, as we've mentioned on previous meetings, reason to say yes, reason to say no, what questions are we going to ask? Those are the core fundamentals, whether it's a face-to-face or whether it's virtual. Now, how we deploy those virtually, well, that's slightly different, and we can talk about those, but the core fundamentals of doing that are the same.
Okay, so meeting preparation and some of the behaviors are the same. The way you do that is somewhat different. So what are some of those differences, Gareth? Just give us a flavor.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the big one is the technology. And I think one of the things about virtual meetings is, and I think some of the criticisms of why people perhaps have got a little downer on virtual meetings is because I still don't think people are using the technology to its fullest extent. And we're going to cover some of those issues in later videos. So, knowing how to use the technology to its fullest extent is a real big thing, because too often people just turn up and use the technology that's provided for them without really thinking about all of its capability. That's a clear thing. There's also, of course, things like setup. So, for example, we'll talk on and touch on things like, for example, good lighting, making sure that you can be seen, with your full features, and perhaps having a second screen, and the kit that you might need. For example, webcams and the right microphones. These are some of the things that make that significant, subtle difference to how you come across, and therefore start to lessen some of the criticisms of virtual, like, for example, oh, I can't get enough interaction and things like that. Well, maybe that's a technical issue that we could do something about to significantly improve that.
So it sounds to me like some of the differences are be on top of your technology, which we will look at in more detail, but also think about some of the differences in techniques that you're going to use and skills that you're going to use. So I'm really looking forward to exploring those with Gareth. With you, Gareth, I should say, just remembering that what we're trying to acknowledge here is the fact that it is fundamentally different, although that some of the basis will still be the same.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you.